这周跟周周用来讲，真心就这个样真，甚至就动物做完的，那么也让到我今夜了。那节奏你的呢，真切早为那么样真，甚至就动物做完的，那么也让到我今夜了。八九应节能可样，巴拉就大不灭巴古拉呀，就个多这将这呀这，甚至这动物做完的，那么。Yara and the Vajin Gela Shasawara Yudu Lord in the Jela Bema Bo Majo Dile Shara Zambo Yan甚至这动做完的，那么也让到我今夜了，强不拉哈热了，马来就求起来高就年纪。开把那罗变成样真，甚至这动物做完的，那么也让到我今夜了，老着我弄得有种的嘞。年纪的当把波拉吉罗，查吉罗马巴罗扎样真，甚至这动物做完的，那么也让到我今夜了，若拉吉更拉着。这让把年月节当把做到了节，把那些把到了这样真，甚至这动物做完的，那么也让到我今夜了。下达了更不动作嘞，我是也叫了云姐妹，前面别加入样的，甚至这都做完的，那么也让到我今夜了，把旁毛着了牛各种，萨摩桑阿耶德勒个节，这让就送节样这，甚至这动物做完的。那么也让到我今夜了，将这个给叫做这种没，这种跟周周用来讲，真心就这个样 sem tse je dong we zo wan de lama je ran da wo jin ge lo ne je zo nin de ne chen che za we lama yang zhen sem tse je dong we zo wan de lama je ran da wo jin ge lo.
Khenchen. Welcome everyone to the last teaching of the series today, and then we will start with the opening prayer.
Sanje chudan choji chonan la chanchu pardu dane jose dage jenso jimbe chonam jola benjir sanje drubar sho.
Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings.
Maharanamga Danyambe Simjan Tamje Deva Dan Devi Judan Dembra Churan Dunga Dan Dunga Judan Trevara Churan Dunga Mebe Deva Dan Durvara Churan Nyeren Chadan Yudan Treve Danyam La Nebra Churan
May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Chantse wadan chujen shabadan jesu yeran gujen surva ye gewa chungse dage jesamba tamche zombe chanchu jemburu.
Whatever slight virtues I have accumulated through prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and requesting, I dedicate it all for the sake of complete enlightenment.
Gusama yonzo lame sonam la chena sansum te jen ne jen cho dale long chu nang se yong she lame chogen guru zan du so wang guru dewan da gen rena mendala barde zaye so.
The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the four continents, and the sun and the moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. To the lamas who possess the three kayas, I offer the outer, inner, and secret offerings. With my body, wealth, and all that is visible, please grant me the supreme realization, enlightenment.
Samje namje sambada loye jeda jedra chejun tumo tebaye chuje kulu gundo so.
Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater and lesser vehicles and the teachings common to both, according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
Khenchen Gurve Gyaltsen Jesuron Jenkaro Gawalen Zhoran Zebe Gaju Rinpoche Jeba Nambra Thave Khenchen Chenlabje Chujun Chabse Jumbe Yandra Se Meshi Chenlam Jachewa Yunwa Khenche Drebe Dibje Chama Mebe Lama Dhambra Namla Chan Zarjen Chuda Jabsan Chewa Chenche Labran Zendo So Doje Chaman Delo Naro Dhamma Dhava Bhajan Chetanba Kare Sumde Zave Lamesh Zajulama Yedam Chuzongla Survande Soda Shuchenjelo Chenzenganda Tempa Dosanje Kudrumanga Borden Lamrashira Tujiran Shen Tarve Lamda Yongzen Shinye Namla Gurjan Zar Shisum Dongha Jenda Chechen Chen Nyursa Mekong Shivra Jela So Sunjedanda Zumba Danjena Thamba Nam Nanda Zanda So Ladan Lame Mam Je Wangbodan Jarjin Lao So Shuje Chola Chawa Cheba Nam Sanje Song Rabdo Shishen Dewe Jujuru Tedan Cheche Tambe Chunyin Bar Yandri She 네, 달라리야. 네 주려는 발라. 다 잠들 쉬어 탄들. 네, 당가랑서 네 두수 통통 제긴 나라. 네, 냠랭게 네 차상 상대외게 네 답용 인담 송아바텔라 퇴상 검송라 좀 백업 텐데지 이 말에 대인도 전에 되는 텐데게 지 가서보다 퇴출 배 상내생에 네 매창마데 배 텔라 첨부유에 갑 안잠불랭데 지로게 벤주르베 야제 슈침보인 로윤도 전에 네 매탐제야 되게 제서 배 텔라 차네 여데베 감된데 지라 네 가랑 소양지 퇴출 셀나신데 배주체네 네 지 추가 토라 퇴바 삼바 곰바 라소바다 제야가 고감들의 중앙인 바와 대양 거치양 제와 망볼라 소놈을 소사 제베기 제운다지 인데게와 대인도 전에 데데게 고갑 디갑선한서 제야기 그냥 양지 추대 추 양다와 차다 마차서야 돼 근데 저 가서나지 삼바 근홍을 할래 되와 어떤데 지인 바와 대지도 전에 산재기 가르송 바르서나 개와단 띠과서야 돼 되는지 주부 체정라 속에 제순 로그 말레스 저 근홍 체정 제순 로그레스 너다 되는지 송바와 대인도 전에 되는 간소지다 근홍 zamboji 근홍 zambo 태양 다지 내가게 펜섬점 많이 봐 되네지 단데게 취라 슈발라 때네 남가다냐베 심지한 담제네 산지기 공방 토벌 지기인 삼바 텐데게 마바찬주게 삼당 되네 텐데게 산지기 공방 토야게 체도 다지 취라 퇴삼 곰라 소바 텐데지 냠내나 주인 삼베 되네 주바 찬주게 삼 오다 텐데게 삼니당 덴베 토네 되네 삼바 나와쇼
So I again, hello, my Dharma friends. And so now we in the middle of a text that really includes all the essential points of practice, which we cover in a short time, but it's all inclusive. And so this is the 35 heartfelt advices that we are now kind of making an effort in. And so nowadays, time is something really very rare because people are quite busy in this world nowadays, especially as the economy or wealth is increasing in the world to the same degree, and people are also getting more and more busy. And so time is really like gold. So the time we are spending here is really worth gold. And so now we have this opportunity to listen, to reflect, and to meditate on the Dharma. And that in itself really is the result of a lot of merit that we have accumulated in many past lifetimes. And so then, however, what is it that really then determines whether or not this Dharma practice becomes authentic? It depends on our motivation. And the Buddha had said that what distinguishes virtue from non-virtue is not the magnitude of one's body and so on, but it is the magnitude of one's motivation. And so therefore we should develop a good motivation and not just thinking about a temporary benefit, but now having entered a Dharma such as this, we should think to give rise to an aspirational bodhicitta, thinking that I am going to establish all sentient beings, limitless as space, in a state of enlightenment. And then on top of that, for this sake, in order for them to attain enlightenment, I shall enter this path of practicing the Dharma of listening, reflecting, and meditating. And that is the engaging bodhicitta. So in the beginning, please cultivate these two kinds of bodhicitta.
네, 다 가상 공도 님담 니슈 자니데 슈심바 임바와 아테네 님담 니슈 자숨바네 고 조용도 자네 네 가상 먼저 쉬와나 신세 다 따와데 타 주바지고도 제 따와서 용도 자네 줄 깨져 노도지 쉬와이나 차생게 따와 소용도 자네 다 가르타 주고 그러서는 나와 탐제대 땅가랑 쪽이지 장에 대도 한다면 망보진 난데요로 남주 내는 된대긴 나와다 탐제대 나랑서 섬게 되네지다 박차스나인다 어때인도 섬게 되네 장수세고나인다 되네지고 돈에 바 장에도 나서와지를 마도베 유르코란 경우는 출 장보세야지나 nem바세야지 매바임바 타 당부도 대치우고 그래 된도 자신에게 깔라 타 당부 줘야 돼 나와 섬수 타 주고 그래 근데 된도다 나와 섬수 타 줘 저기 제라 근데지 양 난경기 시바 코랑 섬 코랑에 간대는도 지금 다 주고 그러와 된도 섬 땅아주 남주지 딱제 맞에 연대상 담만다 텐댕게 담만다 용댕게 섬지 용게 여러때 옛날에 섬 코랑 그 뭐를 주다 연도 전에 섬양 쟁가 내송다 타와 어떤데게 상진진바 근데 다 된다고 유르다 섬니가라 따는데 전에 근데 그 주제게 상진 니순진면 다 탐제되고 조르된게 근데지 인도 전에 다 대대고 임바데 근데 남주다 자신의 걸로 모두 된다는 나용부와 대모대와 난지 전에 근데지 최와지 조구유와 된데 전에 너나한테 따왔어야 돼 태송도 저와지 저번지 된 송고 공직이 나나 따왔어야 돼 또 받아 된 바지 고래 송도와 다 같이 하고와 잠대 따와 말에 냠용 때에서 제와 잠대양 따와 양타고 말에 다 쪼고 가르고서는 양타고 또 바지 가르도고 그래서는 단다 공도 쉬와 나신 나와 스민 바또 스 쟁가 단처와 또 어다 된대게 또 봐요 대라 근데 지금 남주 자신에게 따와서는 소는 것도와 대래 대지를 전에 되네 라랭 소되면 하나요 대가는 모르나 용도와 지단 나와한데다 랑게셈 심리되네 뒤변 타단 잘 대니신의 송전 체만은 일을 매지 절세라니 소야다 대쇼로가 되게 따와 모르나 용도와 다 대단 대나신배 자신에게 까봐야 다 대라하지 무슨 송대야면도 대가랑 따와 모르나 용도요 대인도다 등속거든 가서 가상 쉬심바래 다 된도 따와대 지금 뭐 트네 또 용도 전에 다 가르고 그러잖아. 공고래. 테인도 다 되는 데는 막 검술시에 용도 그래.
So with such a motivation, we continue with the 35 heartfelt advices. And so as yesterday, we spoke about, we came to verse number 22, and so we continue today with verse number 23. And so, until this point, so what we spoke about yesterday is that we first have to decide upon the view, and then that view is we call it the view of Mahamudra. So deciding upon that view, what are we actually really deciding on? What are we, in other words, what are we gaining certainty in? The first thing that we need to resolve is the nature of all appearances. So normally we have all kinds of appearances or perceptions. So we have experiences, we experience happiness and suffering. So it's it refers to these appearances refer to our personal experiences. And these must be recognized to be the imprints of our own mind, or we can call them self-projections. So the object that appears itself does not actually possess the existence that we impute onto it. So when something appears to us as good or bad, that does not inherently, these qualities do not exist in the object itself. So that's the first thing that we have to decide upon when we decide upon Mahamudra, gain certainty in Mahamudra. So we need to resolve that appearances or our experiences are our own mind. And then after we have resolved that, then we have to decide upon, or again, have gained certainty in what is this mind actually. So all appearances are the mind, but then what is this mind that perceives all these things actually? So normally we don't really analyze that mind, and we are in the midst of all the kinds of experiences, various thoughts in the mind and all kinds of experiences. But then when we actually look at that mind who experiences it all, that mind then is seen as being free from arising, abiding, and cessation. So in this way, we resolve that both the object and the mind are free from elaboration, any at the extremes of any elaboration. So this is how we are normally introduced to Mahamudra. And so now, according to this introduction to Mahamudra, we first need to hear about it, but then we need to free ourselves of doubt with regard to the view. And so how do we free ourselves of doubt? Lord Jigten Sumgyen had said in the Gongchik that the view is something that must be realized. So the view must be endowed with realization, meaning that it cannot just be a mere understanding. That's not resolving the view. And also just gaining a little experience is not resolving the view. But the view is something that must be realized genuinely. And so then how do we realize it? We just mentioned before, first we have to resolve that appearances or perceptions are the mind. And then that mind itself is free from arising, abiding, and cessation. So this view of Mahamudra is also alluded to in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, where it says, appearances are one's own mind. From the beginning, mind's nature is free from the extremes of elaboration. Knowing this, not to engage the mind in subject-object duality is the Bodhisattva's practice. So this is how we are introduced to the view of Mahamudra. And so it is exactly what the 37 Bodhisattvas practices, this verse here is speaking about. And so this is what we discussed yesterday. So we discussed about how do we resolve or recognize the view. And so then next comes how do we habituate or practice the view.
한남준 gomba 세야 되게 된다라 네 저번에 된 송고 공진은 가르송이로서나 드네 또바 곰버치바 gomba 송래 다 단지 따와서야 돼 또바텔라 따와스는 송송 또바텔라 내루 또베 다 또바텔라 따와스는 송바래 다 내루 또바 잠지 녀몽바 차상지 매와랑상 차도 말와 다 또바티 양의 양도는 검지지고로와 인도산에 또바티 검버치바들은 검스는 송용이요 테마도 이 따와래 옌도 주바지 검대 요말와 근데 인도산에 근데 또바 검버치바지라 검송 다티 인도산에 텐데기 검텔라 드네지다 남준 뼈주백이 주게도 표모마인바 가리오스나 들었는데 이제 송은과 플루퍼는 줘봐 써야지 드네 소마르 좀와 써야지 드네 란탕 줘봐 써야지 드네 뉴마 좀와 써야다 그래서 표모마인바 주게도 지래 되는다 검술 검자베까게 되네지 검작당 어다 등속걸 마 소용 그 되는다네 내가 드네 예 점주 소용도 어떤데
And so regarding meditation, Lord Jigten Sumgyen also said in the Gongchik, what we call a meditation is the habituation of one's realization. So we have said the realization is the view or the realization of the natural state of the mind. That is what we call the view. And then just through realizing that the nature of the mind, the natural state, we will not instantly, immediately become free of all our afflictive emotions. And to become free of them, we must familiarize ourselves or habituate over and over again to the realization that we have gained. And so just to know the mind that itself is not the meditation to know the view, but we have to habituate it. We have to stabilize the view. That is the meditation. So therefore, to habituate the view is what is called meditation. And so normally in the Kagyu tradition, there is this Dharma terminology. There's 4 ways to describe this, the entering of or habituation of meditation, and so these are the
Sumba de Mantang Jopa, Yiba de Numa Jonga, Stashologa in Mashe.
So the first one is to rest loosely, as the next 4 verses, so to rest at ease. Then the second one is to rest in this kind of fresh state. And then the third one is to rest in the natural state, and then it is, or without, let's say, like ordinary natural state, and then the last one is to rest in an innate state. And so these are levels of the way in which we should meditate is explained.
Gomdo menyam payan namtola gomdo yesem payan namtoin tejer gomdo magum mesember super joba ko yindam yin sondo ta de sondo zane nganso namjun ji da tawate gomdo le songgerwa ta yin yang ngune ji gombe ge kap thena ne yang ji gomya ji yu samyan ro ji 양면은 다 강양 공야 요 말에 삼만다고 텐데게 남도 지제 대바이나 이 공양다 차이 말에스 Kayasana Gomiachi yu, Sambatian Namdore, Kayam Goya Yomare, Sambatian Namdorwa, or Tichidu Zane, Tenechi, Gombatam, Magomba Laswa, Kayam, Mesember, Tawati, Tolapa, Lupur, Chenjoyate, then it Kechishures, Gomba Lupur Joyate. Tea in the Zane not open and Didawa. Namrudoji be Jacob Tarmo Punkin to Tamboya, putting the Zan Betson Cheneda, be Jia, Jagi Yama, Mawachi Yanja, Jatanation, then Rodo. Tamonegi Namka Toshu and about left to the Zane, and hopped Kalachi, Luluchin and Jai, so Sonaji Legdo, or Tina Jenchene, Gumdu Zane, Jipe, Zimbatang, Shenzin. Kaya meva partene flubrutola joyate ta kechijuji res te madoya ji toni seyanro yana chakchen seyanro atne ji gomya ye samdeva yana tera namdo gomba chanruwa o te indu zane te lobran jowate ko indami sumbare.
And so next then verse number 23, it says, the thought of meditation is conceptuality, and the thought of non-meditation is also conceptuality. Without the idea of meditation and non-meditation, leave the mind in its own nature. This is my heartfelt advice. So we have said that we have to habituate to the view. But then when we actually come to habituation or to meditation, when at the time when you meditate, if you think I am this thought of meditation, I'm meditating, or if you think there is of non-meditation, there's nothing to meditate on, then that is also just a thought and not actual meditation. So thinking that there is a meditation is a thought, and also thinking that there's no meditation is a thought. So the most important point in meditation practice is to think nothing whatsoever, but rather to let the mind settle in a kind of loose state at ease. For example, it's like when I'm going in an airplane and the plane is first taking off, then there's a while where you feel it's going a little bit up and down, and it's a little bumpy. But then eventually, once the plane reaches the cruising altitude, then suddenly it becomes very much at ease and just smooth, and it's just cruising along smoothly. So it's a very similar feeling, just some feeling of just cruising along at ease, loosely. And that's really most important when we practice meditation. So once the moment we think this is emptiness or meditation, this is Mahamudra, all of that is also just a conceptual thought. So therefore, the heart advice is to let the mind be in its natural state.
Tene tartugi tawa gombe kapsu tene chi neluji yu sambatayang tene tares yubegin ta tene nelu de kanya mebachi re sambandro tene chi me yambachi na tayang tares ta ona tene yubada mebegin ta nilen debegu umaji yure samne chimaji yure samne gomba ina tayang tares tin dusane ta yebata meba o tinni la yang neju yomare la tinni gi u la yang tenen zimbate pangore sondwa o tene somba tena jin di tun dene tene ji zinjin yong su zo wa charwe tone dene ta negore se o tela tene lubar jo wa sa de songwe sare o tene ji.
And so the Buddha said in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, how to regarding the view when we actually from an ultimate state of meditation, and that is, so when you think this state, this natural state is there is something there, that is an extreme, and also thinking that nothing is there. There is no natural state. There's no mind. And that's also an extreme. And in the middle, in between them, if you think that it's neither existing nor non-existing, it's free from the extremes of existence and non-existing, even that is a thought. That if you think this is just, it's in the middle way, that's also a thought. And so one has to dwell without any such concept of existence or non-existence, and abide evenly without any clinging fixation to any sort of conceptual limitation. And so that is what is referred to as letting the mind be in its natural or kind of natural state at ease.
다단지 루바는 조과 송다 니바 소마종아 세들에 지단 소마세르잖아 스라바라 고르와 사르바 티치르잖아 가서는 것도 검제가 가서 단답했으면 돌내고 요래 내배기 지 내수르지기 돌아서는 당와이나요 남도 찬로래 마홍배기 되는 내수르지가 레와체네 지 상노단데와이나 그냥 남도 찬로 텐데잖아 단답 삼노 강제와 대가랑 돌아봐냐면 자고 그래 텐데잖아 다지 내루테 덴데지 이나 사만로 덴데지 마이나 사만로 덴데기 지답치야요마 지답스도산에 지 상당고 말레스 데네야 남도 담은지 샤르용아 이나야 양티 샤르와 데라 지 가야 마데는 남도 코란지구 제주이자와냐 대한지 말레스 남도 강 샤르와데 카인 동야요 말레스 카인 동와스도산에 남도 남도들 도랑 자와는 마지는 유자와이나 지잖아 야 남도 지수 남도 젠로에니 가용으로 틴데야 틴데체네 파 카인 동야요 말레스 다야 원하는 남도데 파지 매바 조고르웨스나 매바야 조고 말레스 텔 줄레 가둠 메지바 송도 남도 가레 제와이나요 고 가상 송송 샤주르 송송 남도 제와 대가랑게 돌아파 다자와이나 된 남도랑 살 존도 그러대 마도 남도 고랑게 ngo라야 바자네 마다네 마자와 체네 드네야 남도데 지긴돌 지긴줄로 튀르야 니까 용거 디치도 자네 드네 지 남도 지기지라 튀네 제양 마주 야 남도들 믹세기 냠포테나 다 남도데 메와조고도 디페도 자른도 삼바 되게 가두양 지먹고와 단도 줄한테네 삼로 가르치여나요 소마 가르치여나요 살바 대가랑도 돌아봤더니 냠라자와이나 다들 자신이 검차그래 스텔 소마 좀 하송 거래
Then moving on to verse number 24, it says, without focusing on this is and that is not, do not follow whatever comes to one's mind. Without fabricating it by negating and establishing, maintain the natural state. This is my heartfelt advice. So the previous verse was to allow the mind to settle at ease in a loose state. And so the next verse, maintaining this natural state, is maintaining a fresh state, meaning so this word means like new or fresh, and it is referring to the kind of the crisp present moment. That is, you don't think about the past or what things that happened in the past, and you don't anticipate the future and developing all kinds of hopes, because all of that is just conceptual thinking. You just rest in this present, this fresh moment of the presence, and without thinking that there is this natural state, or it exists or it doesn't exist. So do not engage in any kind of conceptuality. And then in this present moment, whatever thought may arise, don't entertain this thought. And that is, don't conceptualize this thought. But at the same time, also don't reject this thought. And also don't just ignore this thought. And so, and this being said, if you if you try to kind of ignore it or push it away, then there is a danger actually that you will actually become eventually caught up in a thought and will actually end up following the thought. So since you're not to do that, then does it mean that you have to try to get rid of the thought since you cannot follow it? Also, you shouldn't try to get rid of the thought. So it's not that you don't recognize it, you recognize it, but then at the same time, you don't accept that thought, you don't follow the thought, but also you don't reject the thought. As you mentioned yesterday, whatever thought arises is liberated upon arising. So in this moment, whatever thought arises, you look at that thought, you see that thought, and then the thought becomes liberated in itself, in its natural place. And that is, it happens when you are settling in the natural state of the mind. If you're not settling in the natural state of the mind, then when the thought arises, and there is a danger that one thought leads to another, leading to this endless chain of thoughts. So whatever thought arises, while resting in the natural state, do not pursue the thought, but also do not reject the thought, but do recognize the thought. So don't think that this is bad. I shouldn't think that way. I should get rid of that. I need an antidote. Now don't try to reject the thought, but also don't engage the thought. So whatever thought arises in this fresh moment, in this present moment, meditate right upon that thought, see that thought, and just settle within it in a meditative state, and it will then settle in its natural place. And so this is or the state of Mahamudra. And so this is this settling in the fresh kind of present moment.
nanzoge sanyi gi lega de nganzo terengchi tu marwa sanyi lega tanda jeyo marwa sanyi gi chawa de tanda jubjuro maung barwa ko tendu ta nganzo ji chongjinge no kon chong tanda ran jabu do ko chong gi lega de tanda ko jigi jigi rogo ndu 마도 마음 받을 거지 철진다고 찍당 레완다고 찍 돈을 내도 요리 마도베 다들 내가 제세가 돌아 요 말와다 마음 받을 텐두 내가 제사 뭐마데 단다고 돌 내가 지고도 베티나신레 나랑조 드네지다 곰자야기 무윤도데 가르스나 지 코르웨기 동에나야 돈에 산제 공부 도야치도 레도 요리 무유데 마음 받을 레데이네 곰사다 단다고 돌아 공고데 텐두 소마 곰바 세게 단다베기 셈 디토라는 네고레스 대마도 마음베스무도 내대야 요 말에 데베스는 가차할 때 가와곰 근데 인도산에 근데 소마곰바 아세야 대신에 송구에서래.
So now to give like a mundane example in terms of this freshness. So normally when we do some kind of worldly activity, if we want to achieve something in the mundane world, so normally we have hopes for the future based on our past experiences. But actually, what we need to do is to make an effort right now to accomplish our future hopes. But what we do is we rely on what we have experienced before and hope for or kind of have an expectation that because of what happened before, something will happen in the future, and don't really actually focus on the now, the present moment. So actually, there's only this present moment, and what is our hope for tomorrow? The activity of tomorrow cannot be done today because today is today. The future didn't happen yet. Tomorrow didn't happen yet. It's still something to happen in the future. But what we have right now is the present moment, where this is the time where we actually engage in action. And so, for example, if you are having a business, if you're trading, then that is an activity that has to be done in the present moment. That you cannot just make a business by having some expectations or plans just for the future, because this is not accomplishing the future. Though the future hasn't happened yet, it doesn't exist in the now. So in the now is when you need to engage in practice. You cannot kind of do the future in the present, and this is what we often try to do. So now in the Dharma sense, now what is the goal, the intention of practicing meditation? So the goal is to become liberated from the suffering of samsara, to attain a state of enlightenment. And that we can say is a future event. But then the fresh moment here points to the need to accomplish that we must practice in the present moment, in this fresh moment, in the moment of now. Because the future moment has not arisen yet. We cannot practice in the future. We can only practice now. And we cannot draw on what happened in the past because it's already over. And so all we have is at the present moment to practice. And so that is what is meant with settling in this fresh moment of mind.
Adene nishu tsanga ba tegi ninzen redo palang meje par lunga chawa tude ngane ju menjo wa tendo yingso tem rangtang jo ba ko ning da means ta rangtang se ya tegi karasongers na tanda kondo soma jonggo re songson ta ngado samno namdo sarva tanda jeyoin tegarang getola energy pa nyamra jago re sonya terwa tin ta tanda rangtang se de jane ta tela manzu gom jasa te ji yabu jikjibu thoro gom goya yo mares namto khandiji jewa ina zange namto khandiji jewa ina ya te rang thoro pasha go res tele yewa khanye che go mares tendo namjin de songdo sem dena deve ngor tus te dedong chaje chimbo yin songdo semba dewo dan jibo yewe kapsu te ngor tu da te dedong chaje chimbo res 타디나 신도 섬나 동해 총화이나 동해 경험을 따고 대 노동 차자 침보고 대인도 전에 나 텐데 전에 되네 랑탕 조고래서 반다 가르제와이나 대가랑 그 돌아봐 조고로 모두 야 대랑한 지금 남칸도 전에 남도 도가 대파 요네 다 야지 제야는 배선 전에 대가 검로 잡대 삼나 다디 남도 찬로 대야 남도 그 강나 남도 니직 찬로 그래서 대인도 전에 가르제와이나 딩모라더니 따고레스 대송바래
The next says verse number 25. It says, do not possess duality, hope or fear, rejection or acceptance. Engage one's body, speech, and mind in a state of non-elaboration. Let the fabricated ideas dissolve in the mode of ordinary thoughts. Rest one's mind in the natural state. This is my heartfelt advice. So previously, first we were advised to settle in this fresh moment of mind. So which means that whatever present kind of new thought arises, you settle meditatively right on that thought and meditate. And so then the next point is to settle in, say, a natural state, as in whatever arises indiscriminately. So whether it is positive or negative. So for example, if you're meditating and you think that I must feel good, I must feel good, I must feel happy. So that's not necessarily meditation only. So it doesn't mean that you must always be in this happy and joyful state. No matter what state, no matter what thought arises, you have to settle in meditatively right on that thought. It could be a good thought or a bad thought. It could be happiness or sadness. And it doesn't always have to be necessarily a happy thought that arises, or a happy experience that arises. Whatever it is that arises, without any preference, you settle in that experience as meditation. And so when happiness, a kind of a blissful experience arises, then looking at the essence of bliss, one recognizes the empty bliss of Mahamudra. And likewise, when a suffering experience arises, you look at its essence and you rest in its empty nature of Mahamudra. So this third point is to allow whatever arises to be as it is, and to settle in whatever it is that arises without any preference of good or abandoning bad. Or thinking that if you think that I have to get rid of these negative thoughts, these negative experiences, I only want to have a good and positive thoughts and experiences. Actually, this is also just another thought, and by having these kind of expectations, you're actually piling more thoughts upon thoughts. So instead, you should accept whatever arises and indiscriminately look at the essence of whatever arises.
Tembatoba Seduzaneta, Namto, Rabege, Namto La Soba, Tenzogi, Tenepachi, Nebachi Matoba. Or Tena Shindu, Revege Namtogi, Nebachi Matoba, Topagian, Nebachi Matoba, Zambugian, Nebachi Matoba, Nembagian, Nebachi Matoba, Chunga Gabla, then rang a singing Mola, Tembatoba, say Ronanju. That Tendegi Temba Matoba Chene, Teniji, Tiparo, and all Tanga. Nenjur Juni la soba gongu yosana, ta Nenjur Juni se andirwa, Gajupagin, Nenjur Je se ajiwa, Zechigin Nenjur, Tane, Dudegin Nenjur, Rochigin Nenjur, Gomigin Nenjurus and Nenjur Jirwa, Ti Jibotela Tane, Gomu Pamo Tubege, Sumre Sumre, Jisum Juni Roa, Bena, Zechig Chung Ding Chembos, Denajin, Dude Chung Ding Chembos, that into the Nyamnelaji. Temba top shuk chechong tone ni yewa tene chi chenang yore de indu ta tende gi yewa chenang wale de ina ngansu temba mato be kala ngarang so semna la tende ro je changkhatse dewa ina yang te tha sa nesru go tola ngansu ta ta lep thu mares hasana tende gi nenju jungni yore de ina ya ta te ngansu sem gi tola temba ji top charwa ina tende nenju jungni de ko rangxing ron ro de ngansu changkhatse go ya yo mare Some temper matuba that nature junior Tankando Devina, Tia, G Tata get tongue neg to lip to mares, the Induzane, that Karachibusana, Temba Toya get chedu, then Numa Jongore, Summer, Numa Seduzana, Aranzo, Sumgaranjin, Tambul Lame, Motebek, Tawa Terran, Junjan, and Gomne, and the Samata, Naji, Mo Temba Top to Vajos.
So then, verse number 26, not stabilizing one's innate nature of mind and designating the 12 yogas and so forth in fabricated meditation. Whatever given is named and is deviating from the actual meaning. Maintain the pristine nature of mind. This is my heartfelt advice. So now then, what is the result of meditation practice? So in the end, we have to gain stability in our habituation of the true nature of the mind. And so that is but once we gain stability, then nothing whatsoever can affect us. So no coarse feeling or thought can affect us in any way. No feeling of hope, no no positive experience, no negative experience or thought. Nothing can affect us in one or the other way or harm us in any way. So this is what is meant with the mind we have gained stability in sustaining the natural state of the mind. And so that is essential and more important than just like taking account of what are these 12 yogas and so forth. So those 12 yogas are in a Kagyu lineage. We speak about the 4 yogas, which are single-pointedness, freedom from elaboration, one taste, and non-meditation. Then Lord Pamudrupa had said that then each of these 4 yogas is divided into 3 subdivisions. So each of the 4 has 3 subdivisions. So this makes a total of 12. So for example, for a single pointedness, you have the lower, the middling, and the higher single pointedness. And then you have the same threefold division for freedom from elaboration and so forth. And so these divisions are made on the basis of one's increasing experience in one's practice. So, but then from our perspective, when we have not yet gained stability in the natural state of the mind, that just by kind of taking account of those 12 yogas and knowing what they are, we don't actually really get to the essence of these 12 yogas. And in fact, when one has gained stability in the natural state of the mind, there's actually no need to even make such a division in one's mind to keep this count kind of where you're at in your mind, but these just will evolve naturally. These experiences will unfold naturally at that point. But so for as long as we have not gained complete stability, even if we take count and we know of these 12 yogas, we will not exactly get to the actual essence of these yogas. So then, therefore, in order to attain such stability, we need to sustain the innate, maintain a pristine nature of the mind, which means that the nature of the mind that was introduced to us by our guru should be sustained exactly the way it was introduced to us. And then this is how we gain stability.
Ndeje song yore tandan de da tanji kondu shiwa nanshin tawa ngon chö ne tawa ngon chö ne ta ti jun de yang tawa ji gom yundu zane tene ga ju kome ki lama tenzo gi lam kare yamba tene jule che yungres ta tende jule che yundu lam non chur me ba jule che song ayina nenjur jege rimba tenzo samma de korang jing jon ros tanga tse goya ke me ba yimba ta tanga tse chi nenjur yins nga rochi gi nenjur yinsares nga peche today yinsares ne tanga tse goya yo mares korang jing lem res pena nga zun di dawa karse ta jane ba yorom rochi lan rowa yina ta gon namru na yan zu thupsam di sadawa ngara lega de namru na yan zu yar dawa namru na yan zu chana ta tene ba jin namru korang ji ken rodu jane dene ba 여러분이 발로 유배 사자 창마도 그런 식이 되는도도 대마도 당에 당 앞에서 사전들을 랩송 당 앞에서 사전들은 조성성도 장같이 거예요 말 그런 식이 랩도 되는 식의 예송들 디지털 전에 이 단단되네 양 지근데 또바 줄라 매베 돈에 장같이 대화이나 되네 내로 찾아 전부 되는가 랩도 말해스 근데 또바 줄라 희송아이나 장같이 거예요 말 그런 식의 야티가네 되는 거래스 근데 송말 되는 전에 당간주 Nyima joya de tene lam nonchul me ba jula cheya la kumje cheya tene ke cheshure se ya ta tene ji sungge sta wande
Duvam Pajung Rinpoche also said that when she mentioned before, if you recognize the view that you have been introduced to and then habituate it continuously, then disability arises. And so it is because the past Kagyu masters have habituated the view genuinely, and then following the introduction given by them, then whatever path they have practiced will then also arise within your own mind. And that is the unmistaken path to arise. And so when the unmistaken stability in the unmistaken path arises, then those 4 yogas will just naturally unfold in your mind. So there is no need to count or kind of try to kind of figure out this is where I'm at, thinking that now I'm at the state of one-pointedness, and now I have reached freedom from elaboration. Now I'm probably at one taste already. So there's no need to think in this way to even know where you're at. It just unfolds naturally. For example, if you're taking an airplane flying from India to Europe, then your job is to enter the plane, to board the plane, and then that's enough. That's all you need to do in order to get from India to Europe. You don't have to actually think that as you're flying, you don't have to kind of keep track of where you're at. Now I'm here and now I'm there. And only if you do that, then you know when you get to Europe, even if you don't think anything, the plane will get you to Europe just naturally. All you need to do is board the plane. So it's just like that. There's no need to keep this count in order to get there. But you're on this plane, and as you keep sustaining, you will get there naturally. So therefore, there's no, you don't actually get to the natural state of Mahamudra or kind of progress through those 4 yogas by keeping account and knowing where you're at. But just by sustaining this pristine nature of mind, or the natural state of the mind, just by maintaining this state, then naturally, actually, you have ceased, you're maintaining the unmistaken path, and you will naturally arrive at the natural state of the mind. So that's the important heartfelt advice.
Oh, yeah. Then hindam you subdue better. That's subdue because of Karasungers, nada, Gombeg in Devushia. Karasung Barasana, Simni Tuna, in Zinzater, Gashi, Simni Topra Kelane, to Shenla, Hingla Banning Tam, Tela Shenlo, cooing in the means on the war. That's it, Hambutegi, Gombeg in Devu de Karsan, I'm doing this on the war. Gomda Nyamo Meva, Songarwa. Gomba, Gom Javi Yoda me, Seate, Tene, Churantene, Low Mambola, Retula Deva, Tichibula Sanomatans. Gom Javi the me said Churang some gadgets. Some banana, Teneji, Shedan Je Chocho, the Cha Je Chocho, the Muk Je Chocho, Tende, Menduna. Gom Majav, Mananzutan, Yamon Karino, Je Chocho, in a Yudra. Gom Jamne, Leon Duzane, Yamon Button so the Petar and Wood was a Chane, Yamomba, Jia Meva. Kesi Jeva in Lamsang, Meva Sotoyata, Teneji Chonduayana. Rinpoche Gombeg Ta Sumbarwa, Tin Sanita, so Semi Turiate in Bata, Semi Tur Sim Turiate. Teach you to Sanje Kayang, Tanen Doyan and Disundor, Rangi Simne Yonsun Dul, then the Sanje Temba in Sumber, Sanje Tembegi, Nimbo Mamade, Ransom Duriate in Sundor, Tin Dusane, but Regibu Yuvare. Rangi Sim de Turusumayina, Tanin Nga Sayag Zimbate, Landu. Nga Yapui, Nga Chibugu, those and Atendegi, Dashi Ninzing, Lotan Sama, Tanduris, then one Chibure, Sumata. Ibu Mamad dancing Pantoson in Sarva or Tere. Tatemado, Tinsan Kashin do Sumatandene. Make Kashin dos, Kashi Karasagusuna, Nape Semi Chaja Chimbu Todio, Kel Lingdus. In a Seminal Hadon, Jeva Peshuchimundus, not to Chimbuji Chana, Sambando. Natane Petserum was a Chana, Samando, Nan Cordo Homa Mambuji Chana, Samando, Tendege, Jeva Yungepe, Mambundus. That thing when a Gumjabek in Deumare somebody. Didn't do Tele Shambalo, when a Chuya which in Hina, Jeva Telapa Shambalon, Jeva de Bango, somebody. Temado, Chuji Chene, Angatanaji to Chambuji Chang in some Jeva. Or Gomji Jamne. Not any page mention with the chapter, not some Rewa. 다 된대기 레와 장장 제대와이나 근데 되게 저랑 검제베기 무유르데 만두바인 바레스 대치도 산에 텔레 셴발로고 그레스 셴발로스도 다 대빵고 그러면서 레와테 빵고요데 아야 텐데 텔레 셴로 그 닝담인소
Then verse number 27. So this speaks about the results of meditation. So it says, when mind is tamed, ego grasping is uprooted. Some, by claiming to have realized the nature of mind, cling to the idea of a yogi mentality that is dark. This is darkness. Be adverse to this mentality. This is my heartfelt advice. So first, with regard to the result of meditation, it is said that a sign of meditation is an absence of afflictive emotions. So, for example, when you're meditating, you think you're meditating, you're spending many years in a retreat in a mountain hermitage, that itself is not actually necessarily meditation. So whether or not you're meditating, you have to actually ask your own mind, look at your own mind. So meditation is when you are not always at any time ready to get angry or kind of lustful, desirous, or ignorant. So when these are not arising kind of impulsively, then it is a sign of meditation. But if you're not really meditating, and any afflictive emotion can arise at any moment, as you keep meditating, you're actually distancing yourself from those afflictive emotions and of detaching yourself from the afflictive emotions until in the end, they no longer arise, or even if they do arise, they disappear immediately upon arising. So this is a sign of meditation. So therefore, this verse is speaking of having to tame one's own mind. So the Buddha also said in the sutras, perfectly tame your own mind. This is the Buddha's teachings. So the essence of the Buddha's teachings is to discipline or to tame your own mind. That involves giving up, abandoning, grasping, self-grasping, various fixations. So it says, be adverse to this mentality or renounce these fixations in the mind. For example, thinking, I want to turn out good. Things have to go well for me. I want to be happy. Actually, when you free yourself of the dualistic thinking of self and other, then you'll find real happiness. That's the actual happiness comes from renouncing self-grasping, fixation in the mind. So in this verse is saying that nowadays there are some who claim to have realized the nature of the mind. For example, they say, I have realized Mahamudra, but still, even though that's what they think of themselves, then still they have all kinds of hopes and fixations in their mind. For example, they think that I'm a great yogi, a great Mahasiddha and so on. Or for example, you think that I must have a large retinue, must have many disciples, I must have a long life, and so forth. So we thinking in this way inside is actually, this is verse is saying, is actually a sign of not having gained the result of meditation. So one should be adverse to this, renounce such a mentality. A real Dharma practitioner will not entertain any such thoughts, but will actually avoid thinking in this way. If one doesn't avoid thinking in this way while practicing the Dharma, one may easily fall into this mentality, thinking that I must be a great yogi and I must have really good reputation, and people must think I'm really good, a good practitioner, and so on. Then we have all these hopes as we are meditating. And that actually is a sign of I'm not actually practicing in an authentic way. And this is not the goal. In this way, basically, you're not accomplishing the actual goal, the result of meditation. And so to accomplish the goal, the result of meditation, we have to completely turn away from such kind of mentality, avoid this mentality.
Oh, yeah. Tame, Nindam Nishuzaje Pate, Ransem Dona, Loma Nangindu, Tongurusu, Jolong Chamagu, Sinchen Tabjilo, Gubachum, Korsomudu, Kuin the means. That's also is some Nelu, Chajachimbu, turns your doors on Ina. From a ranching living grace, Benakaju Comatans on Anjinde, Tamakala, Jesum Malareva, Kadu Yinayape, Redan Anjin, and Jula Yibdegura. Rede, Lomat and the Conzega to living with the Madobe partnership, Loma, riding to the town, Rogoyando, Maying Gura, or Tin to Sane, some Nelu Doswine, Loma ranching doing race. When I think sang to Sundo Chila Tang around Sochi, Lama number 8, Hubble to Pena, Judging Garchin was no Gina. Then Goji, Ne Chila Ju de Vaina, Zamon Shanu Gil, Loma Tamche de, Taji, Chua, Coranching to the Jerry living with the Madobe, Taji Trans to Yonochese, Labu Mundo, or Tinanjindo, Pa Conzala, and Rogoyamando, Cotton Santa de Wing to Sane, or Cochasanchi to Ranjing and doing Gura, or that and so they some dona, Loma Ranjing doing great, say Tere. The Indian Namjun, the Legisondo, Lama Yabo Tedang, Medo Timashimbu, with the Jiguan Zo Jerry, Medo Timashimbu, just such a Yavaina. Bupongwa tenso ransing living ko tomato nomne mato meto pando mare bukza ten button ransing koring res betina jendo tenni de dembe lamaji saja kawa yuina ko tena nguma tenebe saja tongba meddese ke saja zawane mayin ba inaya ransing loma tundo yungre oda tende indu zane ransem dona loma ngandos tende indu 나랑 저지다 총습만 마음 전에 아직 로마지 라인도 일라서 버튼데 자원이는 제거해요 말레스 딘두 근데 제대로 있는데 섬치는 그런 거 당로레스 티치도 전에 근데 믹스에게 파 코르당 로마도 좀 도와 로 만들어봐대 내힌다면 그런 저 장신이 저 연구해야 돼 개침벌레스 직내 니네들이 초랑 개시 성근내로 또 지하대 개치슈레스 그래서 로마고 요나 대도 소마 있는데 로마란 신기 레빙그레스 우주 잡고요 말레스 대치도 전에 다 우주 잡내 되네지다 로마지 라긴도 왜 다대바이나 다되게 펜토스 개 연구 말해요 손발에 텐도 코르좀도 그거 있는다면
Then moving on to verse number 28, it says, when one's mind is realized, disciples are naturally drawn to this. No begging needs to be done in the city or village, and it is inferior to deceive people with various methods. Do not publicly gather. This is my heartfelt advice. So, so once one has realized the true state of Mahamudra, the nature of the mind, disciples will appear naturally, meaning that there is no need to try to find disciples. And just like the past Kagyu masters, for example, Milarepa, he was staying very remotely in mountain hermitages with the wild, like a wild animal, really. But because he had realized the nature of the mind, the disciples just found him naturally. He didn't have to go around looking for disciples, like trying to see, I need to find disciples, where are they? He didn't go anywhere to find disciples. He just realized the nature of the mind, and that naturally drew disciples toward him. Nowadays, for example, it is the same, for instance, with His Eminence Gyaltsen Rinpoche. who has realized the nature of the mind, who rests in the nature of the mind, and this just naturally draws disciples from all directions in the world, east and west, toward him. And he doesn't have to go anywhere. He doesn't have to say, please, come here. And he doesn't have to try to find them. He can just stay put where he is without going anywhere. But because of his realization, the disciples will naturally come. They will naturally find him. And so also there's one example that we often give, and that is if the Lama is good, then it is like a flower with a pleasant smell, a pleasant scent. So when a flower has a pleasant scent, then the bees will naturally come. So the flower doesn't have to go find the bees, but the bees will find the flower. Because of its distinct scent, they will fly to the flower naturally without the flower having to make an effort. And so similarly, if there's an authentic guru, and wherever he stays, he can just go there. And the disciples will just go there naturally. And so in the old days, for example, the gurus would often stay in a very isolated, empty place that is actually completely like remote, without people around, and still disciples would find them and they would gather around them. And so that is because they have realized the nature of the mind, and this will naturally draw in the disciples. So in this verse, it is saying there's no need to, don't go to the city or the village and trying to find disciples. In fact, trying to find disciples is in a way a manipulation. So if you're trying to get disciples, it is actually a way of deceiving sentient beings. So therefore, don't go out trying to find disciples. This is the heartfelt advice. It's important to see that they will naturally come when you have realized the nature of the mind. So for this reason, so that's the first point. And secondly, because of that, what's most important is just to focus on realizing the nature of the mind. That's most important. And when you realize the nature of the mind, the disciples will just come naturally. There's no need to kind of try hard to find disciples. Because this actually will be of no benefit. This will not really draw in disciples. So this is the next heartfelt advice.
Ruju Gama Kaju Inaenda, Barong Kaju Inaenda, Dupa Kaju Inaenda, Kaju Suinaya, Kaju Densa Chatang the Rigbulu Yurda. Reda Desanta, Kaju Densa Mancheva, Reda Desana, Jinemato, but Tunchena Kaju Densa Yomare. Rede Inaya, Sopso Man Shutan, Kaju Lamatan Chayam, Logina, Penajitian Songo Jibula Sanotaina, Jitian Songo Gono, Dunchu Tandana Pere Kapsu, Korum Bumtadawa. Teach you to Jitan Songi Nimachila, Tachi Nanyam the direction of Roma Mambo, General Deja one dream and the Zutama de Return Gomja, Tangundo, Bondo, Kanjeda, Lapchila Sobala. Attended some of the Nimachila, Lapchila, Nating Nabjan Zanga, Tenajin, Zarilla, Nating Nabjan Zanga, Tenajin, Tene. Nada, Rinpoche la, Nating Adong Abjan Chutanga, Patsu Chene, Nyima Chigla, Boom Chigda, Chetula, Formatende, John Pastan, Lord Juda, Tegata Mambu Sarva Homa. Or Tindu, I'm going to say, Sosu Jula, Nelu Topat and the Yang Tabat, Yetzaraina, Homa Ranching doing Doa, or that Tensusumba, teach to Zane, then Nansu Uzujan, Paduan, Dogo Mares. Tindu Chuna Chuyang Yang Tabachi Cheshora, then Ranching doing Res, Tate Sumbe.
For example, when we think about the the history of the Drikung Kagyu lineage. So, for example, Lord Jigten Sumgön's main monastic seat was in Drikung Til, and that was actually a very remote mountainous area, like a range, a mountain range. And in fact, all the Kagyu main monastic seats have been in such remote places. For example, the Karma Kagyu seats, or the Balong Kagyu seats, or the Duba Kagyu, and so on. All of the main monastic seats of the Kagyu lineages have all been in these isolated mountain ranges where the wild animals live. They have not established their main seats in cities or villages and so on. And still, even though they had all established their seats in these remote places, they had inconceivably large retinues of disciples. For example, Lord Jigten Sumgön, by the time he reached the age of 75, he had hundreds and thousands of disciples. And so one day he actually thought to himself, it's not good to stay in a company of that many disciples. I have to send them off to the mountain to meditate there. And so that is then how he sent groups of disciples to various places such as Mount Kailash and Lapchi and so forth. So in one day, he sent 55,525 disciples to Lapchi. And then he sent also the same number, 55,525 disciples to Tsari. And then he sent 55,525 disciples to Mount Kailash in one single day. So you had 160,000 disciples being sent off to mountain retreat in a single day. So this is how many disciples Lord Jigten Sumgön had. So therefore, when one realizes the true nature of the mind, then disciples will just gather around one naturally. There's no need to try to find disciples. So therefore, the advice is just focus on practicing the Dharma truly, authentically, and everything else will fall into place naturally. Disciples will be drawn in naturally.
Norze chawa tongra kelane yene lambe norjin kurbandu leshe tabgan dolong talare tenda ponga kuwinda means tayan samsam ngazun de chigres ta ngabe jitengi chawa chama lue tawayin sene sosolo yebe jono longje kangba tunzo ta tangbo yeba yina tunzo chasang ba mejindal pate ta ngan jitengi chawa chama lue tang chayin salap ya tsusdene tene jig mejindal ne long ya tendegi junur ya sa ne retula chubo cha dewa ina tren dig mares tambo bena soso jigda jitengi chawa chama le tang jitengi junur longjo chama le tang ge isa chama ba le tang ya de je tene yenda la lomo jaw tene jene junur longjo sa ne dewa ina tene ya degi juba yang ta wa cha tu mares o de indu zane tenzo ya ji jiten chuje ge cha jo cha ro Then Nyima pena Gyaltsen melareba ta richola judebe kapchila then Nyima chila korang simu tege tape dawa mambo tsene tamatila Gyaltsen melareba nye dawa tamo Gyaltsen melareba gin dona yongwe ge lamga la lama pari lo zawa seya chin je dawa lama chin je re ta lamga ne tati lama tepe serge chichimbo ge ganga tene pe tulo tanzo pe zibo tene kordan hloma pe mambo tendechina sungchunang dewa lamachi mogin je dawa ta mogin je ne tene ta nge pinja de ngone ko chu yang ta wa jiun de na sin jibu was koran jibu pinja tan zoya kan de jibu de tuundus ta nge pinja de chune mendus rida na ji ta kawa yuna so mo tendechina ta zaya le yung do tene jesu malare ban je yun du zane ta chupe joworen dos ta chura ngone chu ya wo jiun da lama pare lo zaw na jin gores kala be 심부 kala 심부 ndramantra sayandos tena jin kongla shapchi yopo yomo pemangmondos tena jin tene ji desala serge chendos oda tela soba kandar pusum soba tene jin doas Korang Zamase, Korangi Ninsendam, Korangi Pinja Chamala, Kogorobachi to us. That Churan Rojina, Skala Sayamandu, Jabla Kayamandu, Nalada Roba Kawachi to Re, Churan Robachi to Mundosta. The Demonepe Jore Smog, Jesuin and the Shudawa. They should do than a Jesuin Carson, the Mune race. Near Chetamune Chevaina, Betsunji Chevaina, Lama Pari Lota Vale, Hearts and Jing a Pechi, you know, you do two rest, and then do two rest. In a tendegi, you know, you do the Vaina and Jitin Chujer in those. Tendu, Jitin Chujer the use and a Jibotawan in the Mendus. Teach you do, Neyan, Jitin Chujer the Pawai, Ritual Degu, Tachuran Jitin Chujer on the Power Pangne, Ne Jiller. Nanzu lapchilan rogos, the nation Gursun and the Attendere team design Muneji Chuba Yantawa Chigi, Chu Yantawa Yang, Chinging Mone Samutawaina, Tanjin Tamche, the Lutangoya, the Kechimodo Jirua, Aina Nanzu, Chichasang Lutan to Marwa, Tatandan Dene, Mune Chuba Yandachi Chigun, the Chire Sumbare. Temado, Tambun Jitengi Lega Samapang is love, Jela Tenevin Jitengi, Juno Long Jury, Jitengi Cordo Loma Chanja, Ruk Devayina. Take it Chuba Yanda Majavares, Techidusane, Tender Puma, Ku in the mean, Sumberda.
So then we move on to verse number 29. It says, if promising to offer goods and jobs and properties that are stolen from others are used to assemble followers, then one's profession of teaching relies on turbulence. Abandon these. This is my heartfelt advice. So we say we want to abandon all mundane activity. Let's say you abandon, you say, I'm going to give up the world, I'm going to go into mountains and practice. So then you give away all your wealth and your house and everything you owned, you give it away to others, and you tell them, I gave up all mundane activities, I'm going to meditate. So then you go to meditate, and then even though you've given up your own wealth, then you go and actually use the wealth of others. So then you use your practice in a way to take other people's possessions because you don't have any, and then gather disciples in such a way, using that to gather disciples. So that's also not really what makes an authentic Dharma practitioner. So basically, if one says, I'm going to give up the world, and then one instead lives in poverty, but then just basically relies on others to support one, and basically lives one's life like that does not make one an authentic Dharma practitioner. In fact, it becomes an activity of the 8 worldly concerns. For example, Milarepa, he went to practice in the mountains, a mountain hermitage. And he was basically living like a wild animal in the mountains. And so he stayed there, and so one day his sister came looking for him. So first, for many months, she had been looking to find him. And so on her way to finding him, she met a lama, a high lama called Lama Barilotsawa, and he was sitting on a high golden throne, and he was wearing very fancy robes, and he had many disciples and a large gathering of people around him as he was teaching the Dharma. So when the sister found Milarepa, she actually thought to herself, like, my brother, if my brother would be a true Dharma practitioner, he should be like this Lama Barilotsawa. He should do it like that. And so she tried to find him, and then finally she found him one day, finding him in a very impoverished state, just like a wild animal in meditation. And so she scolded him and said, you are so pitiful. And on the road, I've met this great Lama Vajrayana. You should be like him. He has all sorts of delicious foods to eat, and he's sitting on a high throne, and he has a vast gathering of disciples, and he has many attendants and many servants who are there at his services. Everything around him is just utter perfection. You should just be like him. And not only can he live that way, he's actually also able to help his relatives, his family. But look at you can't do anything. You can't, leave alone helping your family. You can't even really help yourself. And you have no food to eat. So you should really try to be like him if you want to be a true Dharma practitioner. And so Milarepa then responded that it is true. If I would make an effort, if I were to try, I would do even better than this Lama Vajrayana. I would accomplish like much greater worldly things than he had. But however, all of that would be just an activity of the 8 worldly concerns. And I find no happiness. I'm not happy when engaging in the 8 worldly concerns. I have abandoned the 8 worldly concerns. In order to abandon them, I secluded to an isolated mountain retreat. And I advise you too to abandon the 8 worldly concerns and follow me to practice in Lapchi. So then he sang this song to her. And so this is really the essence of it. So if we really want to practice the Dharma in an authentic way, be a true Dharma practitioner, it is important to abandon, of course, worldly activities. But then now from our perspective, we are not able to abandon all of our activities. But so in generally speaking, this is how like the greatest practitioner would engage in practice. But then this is contrary to just be telling people I'm going to abandon the world and then basically live on the provision of others and use these provisions also to gather more disciples and so on. So if it turns out to be that in the end, then again, you are not actually a true, authentic Dharma practitioner. So therefore, it is the hard advice to abandon all these.
네, 다 숨지 탐바테 짐바 짐부 동시 렘뷸렌 도청메베 소뇽 제도로 제노 탑진 조진 조롱지 이목되고 코인hin다민스 아 양은데네지 단지 dengi norze sama pa tang chawa yin sta ngam chowa de sonyum jigu thon den chowa chen da de se khan den ji lap yin na ya muyur de la mi shen da ge den ji junol long jo den zo tabshi da 문제 통은 소소로 토비아 배전체 den ji ro de wa yin da pe ji sonyum long wa de ge 펜도 마주버레스 sonyum long wa de nyere gen chowa jigu gi che de ma do be cho랑 ge 메세 차상 ge che du sonyum long ge marwas 아때인데 전에 제 당부 어다 짐바 땡킹기 짐바 때 랭킹기 랭 단디 문에 빼야보레 쓰고는 내가 충충 소뇽 long 되네 빼 초와 약슈레 세네트네 칸랍 얘네 도용om에 돈에 되네지 이행기 전원론조 차상 베소소로 톱나 삼베 무유르 체네트는 로데바이나 대안들 말에 스테인드 전에 텐데게 되네지 삼로 탑조데 마동와데 그런 게 행담이 송바다.
And then moving on to verse 30. Generosity is that the giver gives and the receiver receives. It is said that if one takes alms without little desire, then by means of begging, one steals others' property. Abandon this displeasure. This is my heartfelt advice. So when you tell others, now I gave up all worldly possessions and I'm only going around begging for alms and practicing the Dharma. So you tell that to others. But then the actual goal in the mind is trying to get as much out of others as you can. So then this does not actually then end up in the general benefits of living through begging for alms. Because the point of taking alms from others is meant to be on a day-to-day basis. So basically, when you're begging for alms means that you're only asking for today, the food for today, not for the future. You're not kind of ensuring that you're all good, taking care of for the rest of your life, but you're only taking what you need for today. So that is the meaning of taking alms. And so then if you tell others that, so one should take alms without little desire, but then if you make kind of a display of that and say that, this is excellent, I'm just living on alms, and so the giver gives and the receiver receives, and this is a practice that is done without much desire. But at the same time, in your mind, if you really actually think that kind of see these as a way to get something from others, and that's not the proper motive to have. And it's actually a quite shameful motivation to have. So therefore, it is the hard advice to abandon this displeasure.
Ranyam Pando Yunten, Jishariang, Chorche Jengum, Meji Kondobe, Jembe Yunten, Dale Manam Line, Yiram Gomba, Kuin Hindami, Stand Depend Nenga Chimbuchire, Jiong Gichane, Sosola Yubeki, Yunten Yanayandra, Benjuri Yanayandra, Kari Yanayang, Jingomsu Chiati, this, Tape, Netan George Risundua, Jidanam Jun, Samnoshida Tang Machine King. Lobjong shida chi manyong ken, jiso shida jachimon tong manyong ke mendo jina. This is longju chimbo chawa da lamsang, longju dan me shin da long su chi yung gruba. Tenan shin, ji so so le xin yuan de zu yuan teni be nga je chimbo chane, yin long su cha chi yung gruba. Teni tela tene so so le teni ji yuan den chungwa, longju chungwa tan le nyeb ju xie yung gruba, tong chung chi yung gruba. Ta de be du ja le song ba ten du zane, teni 소소 라 진 지탱 토네 롱저라 소베 연대 연나양 몬수치야 요마레스 다드는 디는 저거 추구도는 송거와 당연도 냠낸 지인도 전에 소소라니라 냠용 담만다당 드네지 왕도의 연대 담만다 근데 카레 샤와이나야 줄이 제와이나야 에드네지 미진달로 몬수치야 요마레스 사버도 되네 베고를 송도와 지단한테 검자윈도 전에 참산냠용 담을 뭐 샤주여들에 이렇게 빵을 찌지 nen줄 냠나 찌 샤르세게 이렇게 빵간 담을 찌게 매도 찌게 매도 많이 받지게 야부 찌게 누구 찌게 상마 찌요 되나신도 nen줄 받던서 냠용도 담을 뭐 샤야요 송도와 다 되는지 샤르인도 당 앞에서 상제 사유설의 섬섬으로 나제지 캔에 Tene te ngom so chene ta ngala ngwenshi yu, ngala zunchuru yu, ngala nipa yu, tende chene lab deba yina, tegi churana parche yungure songdo namju. Di chidu zane, nyamlen kandeji chege na nyamlen sangwa chene cheba yina, tene pento chea yungu yore. Sangha songdo wa, sangha sedu zane sangwa chene nyamlen chea dala sangha se yore. Nyamlen koranya sangwa che gore, nyamlen gin rehu yin sangwa che gore. 다 소소가 자외라마 지구를 쇼고래 텔레 쇼와이나 테네 케서당 본도에 담아나 용으로와 테마도 간조문을 시에자와이나 테네 제위 연로래 라로래 대인도 전에 tensobe beat pe kechimures yen la ngomso mejewa kondu begures temado samsamtene ji nenjoba pache shuyong kalamo tensolotene ndamana chayumur segdo ngunshi tesu yonkendrochi zunchur tesu yonkendrochi cha tene lamsa meshinda tene lab tene chejewa ina tene digmare estela tene gomchen sege cherwa songdo gaju lama tensoge sege cherwa sudupena meto jigena gunke tesola se jamlugro senatene 세잡 로도 티나신 전에 다 공진 세잡 송아레스 대체도 tenso 돌아가는 배 잡잡 지구를 송만드네.
Then moving on to verse number 31. So it says, if one has experience of qualities of realization or abandonment, whatever may arise, keep it secret and do not exhibit to others, or else one loses the experience. Others' understanding may be inferior to one's own. Practice rejoicefully, and this is my heartfelt advice. So this is a very important point here. And so regarding one's various experiences or qualities that one gains from one's practice, or even in a mundane sense, for example, one may become wealthy, acquire a lot of possessions. So then what one often tends to do is exhibit this to others, or brag about one's qualities to others. There's some people who may brag about or make kind of a display of their great qualities or the great learning, and then also in a way look down on those who they believe are inferior to themselves. And so often then, especially those people who generally actually do not have, let's say, a lot of wealth, for example, and then if they get a little bit of wealth, or if they know one little thing, then immediately they make a big show of it, and they brag about the little thing that they have gained. And so, or for example, they gain a slight knowledge of something, then they feel very prideful about it and brag about it. So this verse is saying that all of these qualities that one may find within oneself then leads to this prideful mind, which also then leads to putting down others and looking down on them, thinking that they're inferior to me. So that is a very kind of a negative kind of attitude to have. So not this, which was a worldly example, but here we're speaking about more the qualities arising from Dharma practice. So when you engage in Dharma practice, you may have all kinds of experiences, all kinds of qualities and experiences may arise in meditation practice. And whatever it is that may arise, do not brag about those to others, do not even share them to others, your various experiences of realization in meditation and so on. In fact, not only should one not share them with others, one should actually keep them hidden. One should keep them secret. And so regarding the experiences that arise in our meditation, it is said that to a yogi, the experiences arising in a yogi's mind are as manifold as a summer meadow. So in a summer meadow, all kinds of things grow. Flowers grow, things that are not flowers grow, beautiful things grow, like ugly things grow, all kinds of things grow in a summer meadow. So to a yogi, all kinds of different experiences may arise. And sometimes the yogi then may think that I might be enlightened, I'm probably enlightened already. And so then they find themselves in this enlightened state and manifest clairvoyant abilities and miraculous powers and all kinds of abilities. And then they feel quite content about their great qualities. And so they tell others about it. And it is said that this is actually why the yogis encounter obstacles. So these experiences, whatever they may be, should actually be kept secret, hidden from others. That would be of a much greater benefit. And we also speak about the Vajrayana as the secret mantra. It's a secret practice, as in one keeps it to oneself. One keeps one's own experience to oneself. One also keeps one's results or attainments to oneself. The only person one shares the experiences with is the root guru. One shares those with the root guru because then the root guru can give you further instructions on how to enhance the practice from this point on, to know how to develop the practice from there, and how to clear away hindrances on the practice. But on the other hand, if one shares one's experiences with all kinds of people, then it is said that will lead to the fading away, the loss of these experiences and accomplishments. And that is why it's so important to keep them hidden, a secret. Instead of bragging or speaking about them, keep them secret. This is why a yogi encounters obstacles. It's because of their indiscriminate display of experiences. So when they just have a little clairvoyant moment, or some miracle happens, and immediately they go and tell others. And so that's why they encounter all kinds of hindrances. And so it is said that the Paschal Masters is that in this case, the experience or the realization becomes like a flower that has been kind of frozen in frost, has been covered in frost. Or like, for example, when in winter time or at night when it's cold, it becomes covered with frost. So therefore, this is a point to be very careful about.
Yembe yunten dal menama irang gomba songdawa daji sosule pangdo ge yunten member pangdo ge yunde shida menken ro ji ina yang tenzola yunten tis ma do ji meba ina telang zo ji su iran chegures yenge yunten chungchung la yang ji su iran chegure rang ge yunten chungchung la yang nga je panggo re o ti indu zane rang la yunten penaji chimbo re ji bo ran na jin ji yeba ina yang telang nga je pang Yen yunten chung chung tene dochen zamji mado meba ina yang tela yerang gom o tende cheba ina tene mone ki juba yang ta wachi cha tu bares o tendu tende cheya tenge hingdam yin songdo wa.
So it says practice rejoicefully, so meaning that when you see rejoicing here, when you see others that do not actually have the greatest qualities of realization and renunciation and so on, but you just see a small quality in them, then you should rejoice in even the slightest quality in others. But you should abandon pride with regard to even the slightest quality you see in yourself. So even if your qualities would be as large as a mountain, you should abandon pride. And even if you see a quality in others that is as small as an atomic particle, as tiny quality in others, you should rejoice in that. And this is how you become an authentic Dharma practitioner. So this is my heartfelt advice.
Oh yeah, tene sumju soni ba tege rola tsesem ngang ge mandurishing rando bangje jenjun changmun ru kanyan model chamyang su danyum cheba ko nyindam yin songdo ba ta te indu sane zo namju gomgen tle de hinjire songero ba te indu sane da nganzo tene rowa simjen tamje de sosoge mar majirwa meba tene je indu simje tamjela zewege simde ngangi 만들어 가두이나 제와 준진해 가지고 그래서 내가 대단냠도 장을 떼봐 줘야 이제는 쩐던야 같은 되게 때문에 자와지는 지야요 말에 가리나야 zambodan nemba yabodan dubo 탐지가 더 따님지 제도 와이나 그는 뭐네 지바 양타 와지래 송바를 텐데 텐데 지바도 고는다니.
And then verse number 32. Do not lose affection toward migrant beings. Do not praise oneself or expose others' faults. In the state of non-grasping and non-conception, be indifferent. This is my heartfelt advice. It is said that the activity of meditation is compassion. And is to see that all sentient beings, without exception, have been my mother. And knowing that one never lets go of the love of one has for all sentient beings. And then, and therefore, seeing, never losing love for all sentient beings, it says, do not praise yourself or expose others' faults. So no matter what may appear, whether it is something good, a good quality, or it is a fault, anything, whether it's positive or negative, let it all be equal. So be completely indifferent, and you will be an authentic Dharma practitioner. So this is my heartfelt advice.
Ne sosomba tegi ranlang kowe yoji chini layang sende yapu tsang chapter korban thoda norze ranleji madagume kowe nyindami ins daji ngarang chu mechen dinang la jin chowa jeya ge jalayang yoruba se ku desala soba tenan shin soso la ji thobo thomo ngoshin bayang yoruba ngarang da 타니 쇼기나랑 zubo양 yoruba löse tindu do tamchela kadu yenaji matabendu shigum야 배 개침보레스 좀생 같이는서나 니마치는 안전 내서도 카가차고야 텐데 연구로와 시외 니모텔라 저노 롱초양 커사요 말에 도보 전모양 퇴사요 말에 소소그 짜침부 유비 zu본데양 커사 매용 유리 때인도 전에 단다 거는 컨솔라지 matabendu 시지 예가이나 안도서 탐제에 산행하서 야는 줘야래 삼백에 숨줄 텐데 지게 되바이나 근데 산이 니마지가 야고에 니마들라 동해 충거래대 때된데다와 안저가나 지 자라지는 반디 자라도 빼자 첨부에 단디 나래 인증이 고도 삼백 셴바 슈침부 여바이나 디 자라도 톨라차도 동해 슈침부 용도와 다 자라들은 남자 준도다 디 마다바르고 니마지가 톨라차로 사마야로 텐데게 전환로 지 여바이나 그냥 그 산이 돌아차 용어가 다 거기다 거랑 신으로 와서 양도 지금 지워 용어도 텐데 인도 텐데 선호다야데 고인담이 송바다
Then verse number 33, all possessions that one needs are merely debt to this life, and one should be detached from these. One's servants, friends, properties, including one's body, are impermanent, are not needed. This is my heartfelt advice. So now we have the various things that we need in this life to live this life. So, for example, we have food and clothing, and we have a house, a place to stay, and so on. And then also we have companions, we have friends, acquaintances, and what's closest and dearest to us of all the things we have is our own body, our own life. And so here it is very important to always remember impermanence, because one thing is sure, and that is one day we are going to separate from all of these. When we die, we cannot bring with us our money or our possessions. We cannot bring our friends and loved ones with us. We also cannot bring our dear, precious body with us. So therefore, now it's important to remember that all of that is impermanent. One day I will have to all leave everything behind, and I have to continue on my own. So then when that day comes, you will suffer not much less. Because otherwise, for example, if you have this really dear, treasured object that you love so much and you don't want to let it go, you always want to have it, you're very attached to it, then if that thing breaks one day, then you will be heartbroken. You will be very upset. But if you already know that one day it is going to break, I'm not always going to have that because everything is impermanent, then when that day actually comes and you do separate from that precious dear object, then the feeling will not be so strong because you already knew that before. And then at that time, you will just think that this is just how things are, that's the nature of things. And then you will just be able to stay happy. So that is to practice impermanence. So remember that is the heartfelt advice.
Then sojuba tegi, sujuba tegi, Ranjela Ransam Tane, Dibe Kangan, Tardu Shashingdom, Yawa Kanjing, Moe Jendeva, Nimsen Kunji, Kuin the Yins. Atene Sosugi, Chevegi, Legala, Samu Yavotang, Stapan and Nyima Renda Gonda Gasan, some of these down to Yahoyuri, Tring Nimandela, Diwachis Chendu the Mandu Samotang, Samu Gunong to Diwa Chendu Mandu, Lunga to Diwa Chendu Mandu, Kesi Tenisi Chenduna, Gonda Shabache. I can see Terengi Nimondela, Lunga Yusungutone, Gewachi Chenduna, Telanghova Yantawa Jab, or Tende Chene, Nyendan Sing Kundu, Tende Chene in Rotovayana, Pekachembures, Stay in the Sana Tendechia, thing in the Yusumbre.
Then verse number 34. Focusing on what one has committed, immediately confess when one becomes solid by misdeeds, sealed by dedication, whatever virtues one has accumulated throughout the day and night. This is my heartfelt advice. So it would be good, for example, to revise every day in the evening as to what have I done today. And for example, ask yourself today, have I done anything wrong? Have I practiced any misdeed? What was my motivation? Did I have negative motivations today? Did I act wrong with body or speech? And so if you find a misdeed that was committed on that day, then in the evening it would be good to confess that. And then also if you find that today I practiced virtue with body, speech, and mind, then you can dedicate this virtue perfectly. And so in this way, try to bring to mind all virtues and dedicate or confess negative deeds all the time, day and night. So that is the heartfelt advice.
Tene sumju songa ba tela ta kar sundusana ta sum dordure ndonna cender chewa kanje nam ngoko jengu kollam mesemsing koncho nam sum tuji mater la leng andam ku hindamis ta so geja dodo sheba ina nganzo ge mesen dege nangla tene chawa kanje ji ji yuna yang nganzo ge melam gogor tanya le lawre gogor tang tugres tendu gogor tang tugre gogor matans 가인스나 또 제조대 가르스나 미기 주랑기 내가 야고 제송 나는 되바 주나인다 내가 야고 제 마송스는 메라지와 티케치 뭐 말해스 쪼데 가르고 올스나 주랑기 메신데는라 꼰초 숨게다 주랑은 마체 가지고 그래스 소소교 삼노서 나라 꼰네 제밤에 봤지 레전드당 가라와메 봤지 근데 예시게 젠다 된바 tensu게 지 지근도 자네 근데 원에게 지 체험해 봐지. 어다 텐데지 제토바이나 드네 메세는 행보여 봐지 차트 그래스. 어다 텐데지네 드네 너야 드는 게 행당이 소야다 데레 손돌드바이나.
Then verse number 5 summarizes it all. It says, in brief, whatever activity one performs in this life, without focusing on hypocrisy or cheating others, without possessing displeasure toward the three jewels, strictly practice. This is my heartfelt advice. So in our lives, in any of our activities, it's easy to manipulate others, to deceive others. We can always do that, but even though we can easily manipulate others, the advice here is don't do that, and also do not fall sway to praise. For example, when others praise you for your good things, or blame you for having done wrong and so on, all of that is not important. What's important in this life is that you never separate from the three jewels, and in this way that you are in a way clean with yourself, that you basically go without any regrets in your mind, and that you know that you have never transgressed the principle of karma. so that you endow yourself, adorn yourself with the ornament of wisdom. So you should never separate from this. This is most important in this life. And if you are able to do that, then you really have found the essence, the meaning, purpose of this life. And so that, in brief, is my heartfelt advice.
Jundu rangi sumge nekab jindashi jundu tenda shijen demba yishin dundu ba jasala na yin song yoba ta tina jende na karsana ngone ji ta tama de la nganzu ta che chi goya ngoma de so so ge sim ge nekab terwa samlo ge cherso lunga ge chawa tenzu thola ta che chi tni yabundo na so la jesu yang gom dobundo na njwa tang ta tende jin ro to ba yin tni 나도다 지금 남바 산제베 이 제라 양 다바지 추투바 임바래 오야 나티 인도 전에 되게 되네 순주 송아데 다 참도와 어떤데.
So then it says in the 37 Bodhisattva practices at the very end, the concluding verse says that in brief, whatever you do, whatever conduct one engages in, one should ask at all times, what is the state of my mind? And then accomplishing others' purpose through constantly maintaining mindfulness and awareness is the Bodhisattva's practice. So it's important to always ask, what is the state of my mind, and analyze the state of your mind. And then by taking the mind as a principle, then you ensure that all your activities of body and speech become wholesome. And then if they are, you should rejoice in those. And then if they're not, then you should change those. So this is really how we enter and practice the Buddha Dharma truly. So, and then this completes the 35 heartfelt advices.
와야 다는 마 대단한 행동 숨주 장한데 현준주비 최소 마인징 손내봉 요던 주매무 나리 춘제 마이 송경고 랑게냠네 현도 부조바 가지매버 진든 동바 추제타번 조리 gelling 페르 송바다 단디 행동 숨주 송한데 나는 시에자와 대전다 던조 미현다근데 지금도 저는 게 주연주와 자원이면 대마세 드네지 네 고거단게 메스 조 가래서는 나랑게 냠내 남주 가래 지기나 대지자 전에 근데 나랑게 성근난도 운에게지 삼바 대가랑 가네마 셰바 이마도베 성근난의 삼로 현다지 땅 카네야 현다지 셰지 같은데 개민스 근데지 고운도 선에 나리 춘제마 다 른진주라고 로마로와 나 공게 되네 꾸만낭송스 어다 된대 현상 근데는 조보치는 뒤져와인 세다 대송바 되게 되는 주dom도 지래.
And then the concluding verses here are, thus these 35 heartfelt advices are not to expose others' faults or to downplay, nor are they hypocrisy that prevents impartiality. At the request of the Ngarinan, through my practice from deep in my heart, without insincerity, quickly wrote these advices by Jigung Dharma Kirti, may be auspicious. So he's saying that the author is saying that when the verse that I shared are not meant to expose other people's faults. I'm not saying this is what others are doing. And also these words are no words of manipulation. But these words are just my own experiences gained in practice in the form of words written down. So what I wrote down are the actual experiences arising in my mind. It's not that I'm thinking one thing, but saying another thing. Whatever is written down here is an exact reflection of my personal experience in my own mind. And this is how I myself am practicing. And he says that this advice was given at the request of one of his disciples, the Ngari Nun. And so following this request, he quickly wrote down these words of advice.
네 쇼로가 타마데기 탄도연나 람데 템바리 녀르 초본제라 멤버나 년담데가 마다 두다고 줄지곤도 시대연나고스 안모네기 타르바토야긴 데바 연켄지나 녀드네 시에제베 년담던소 모네지 주란소 냠네지 외바지인스 야테 마임바 마옴발라 녀베나나 주란소 진로야긴 데바 연켄이는 디 년담데라 자와니나 마다스 가인사는데야 mana tu luana shi cha du res den du ndi nyam len chen nya wal ro tu ma res o te song ba te shi du san ne de kan da ji dan de ne song ja ba na shin chen la len ji che to ba yin na de ne tar wa to ya la da ja ja yin song ba lam chang ma ma no ba ji de ne den yu se ya ta te ten ba yin ba re.
And then the concluding verse here says, these advices suit those who long to be liberated from samsara. For those who aspire to be the chief of hell, these advices will become poisonous wounds. Will there be any intellectual who will reflect on this? So those who wish to attain liberation should practice these heartfelt advices. So it's meant for those who wish to attain liberation. Then for those who do not wish for liberation, those who want to take birth in hell, they should not at all look at these words of advices. It's not meant for those. For them, it will be like a poisonous wound. So if you want to go to hell and look at these instructions, you're not going to be able to go to hell. However, if you're interested in attaining liberation, if you practice these words of advice precisely, then with 100% certainty, you will go to the state of liberation, because it really represents, it constitutes the all-inclusive, complete and unmistaken path.
라서 당연히 인담 송아바 되는 차르송 되네 대인류장에 되는 상말라 다디스디스 편도 중요하게 되네 레와당 만남시고요. 다 간사는데 배찬디지나 배찬용용 지른데 돈다베 사보르도와 대인류장에 양징에 차상 진르시 잠마토바 되네 용시바레 용거래 되네 양지 인르시 만다와야 용거래 되네 인류장에 양 거튼소니 거 만다와랑 탑시게 말와 대인류다 간다르지 베스트스인데 시슈와 되기 되네 편도 중요하게 레와트네 지요 되네 타마들다 가랑소 지 로 서바다 닝바니 괜찮은 지로와 다니마 카시질 로 닝바도 존로 요레든 로 서바 지고 조용 요레 된데 인도산에 로 서바 텔라 된 탐체라 참들 다시들 쉬야 지당 되네 지 로 서베 나라이나야 되네 네 나사메와 어디나 진도 섬는 동에 메와 어디나 진도 되네 지 소소게 된 예레게 최단 tumbe게 되는 자와가 돌아 양다고 슈투야게 되는 뭐는 어떤 지 슈요 되는 정말 두지체.
And so now this completes the teachings on the 35 heartfelt advices, and I sincerely hope and pray that it has been of benefit to you. This text is very short but extremely profound in meaning, and so perhaps I wasn't able to, it's possible that I wasn't able to explain really everything within this text, or perhaps I have not explained some things sufficiently. However, so I did my best to explain it to the best of my abilities, but if then things that were insufficiencies, then this is basically the constraints that we have. But I really hope that I did my best and that it benefited you at least somewhat. And also, so now we are kind of coming to the transition. We're transitioning the old year to the new year. In a few days will be the new year. We start in the new year. And I want to wish all of you a happy new year. And I pray that in the new year, you will all be free from sickness, from illness, and that you will be free from mental unhappiness, and you will be happy, and that day by day on a daily basis, you will be able to enter more and more in authentic, true Dharma practice. That is my prayer for you, and many dashi delek.
네, 단단데 다 하버도 계준 넘버 참아라는 투지체 간서나 다시 예 배산도 때때인데 시지 잡토와 있나요? 계준 매와 있는데 메리진다게 자와지는 고토 말와 근데 인도잖아 계준세야 돼. 갈래야 첨부래. 근데 양 레가대야 배 지금 펜도 첨부 연경이 자자지로와 어떤데 인도잖아. 계준 넘버라양 투지체에서는 쉬어야 되는데 지체 근데 가라서야 지로 서베게 나라 근데 dende시는 냠좀 전에 야 주게 돌아 봐서지 계절시에 투수된데 토야라 되는 배전 슈에 되는 야마음 바란제요 그지
And especially I also would like to thank the translators, because even though I might be able to give some explanation on a text, if there's no translator to translate them, then the people of the various languages will also not be able to understand the teachings. And so translating is very difficult, but it's a very beneficial activity. So therefore I want to thank the translators. And then also in the new year, I hope that we can meet again for more Dharma teachings, Dharma talks with each other. And so we'll try to make this happen. And I hope to see you again soon in the future. And Dashidele.
Sonamde Adamje Sekwan Nibe Dana Bamje Jega Nanje Balong Rubai Siben Solen Donam Dover.
By this merit, may I attain omniscience, having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings. May I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death.
Lama Gungama Zangwara Sorvande, Chodo Kutse Rangwara Sorvande, Jilla Darjan Jebara Sorvande, Lama Dandarwa Mebra Chenjelo.
I pray for the excellent health of the Guru. I pray that he lives a supremely long life. I pray that his activities spread far and wide. Grant blessings that I may not be separate from the Guru.
Jambe Bawe Chedran Jambada, Gunda Samba Deyan Dejinde, Dada Gunje, Juso Dalo Jergewan, Dada Damje Rabdo.
Just as the hero Manjushri realized things as they are, and as did Samantabhadra too, I will follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all these virtues.
Sanje Gosum Nive Chanlavada, Chunye Manjuru Dembe Chanlavada, Gandam Mechen Dembe Chanlavje, Jadrang Urjan Malam Drumbar.
By the blessing of the Buddhas who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging nature of reality, and by the blessing of the undivided Sangha community, may my prayers be fulfilled according to this dedication.
Dada Kunde Tham Jijin Dusumda Sabada Yubin Given Zawande, Dada Simchen Tamjen Yudo Lana Me. Yang Davara Zobe Janchu Rimboje Dovara Jurenje.
By the virtues accumulated in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the intrinsic root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious awakening.
Sheja Gunze Gunchen Chujen Dendranella Wando Gomba Rinchen Balje Demba Sindeb Shedu to Samangombe Zenjuru.
May the teachings of the great Trigungpa Ratnashri, Master of Interdependence, Omniscient Lord of Dharma, who has seen all knowable things, be upheld until the end of cyclic existence through study, practice, hearing, contemplation, and meditation.
Chan Choy Sam Choy Rambo Che Mahaji Pana Jin Jur Je Pa Nyam Ba Me Par Yang Hone Kong De Pe War Sho.
May bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not yet arisen. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.
That's all.
Thank you so much, Khenchen. We wish you have a long life, happy, and all the best for the new year. Thank you so much, all interpreters, Ina, Alex, Rocco, Abraham. So in January and February, Khenchen have some activities. So Khenchen cannot teach us in 2 months. So see you all back in March.
That's all.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.
Trân trọng tri ân đại chúng ạ.
Bye bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New
Thank
Year,
you,
everyone.
Chandela. Thank you,
Bye.
all the translators. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
For those who would like to make an offering to Khenchen, Nyima, Gyaltsen, Rinpoche, we have put some information in the chat room. So yes, if you have difficulties, you can contact us for assistance. Thank you. Dạ, thưa đại chúng, chúng con có để thông tin nếu để cho những quý vị nào muốn cúng dường cho giảng sư của chúng ta, ngài Khenchen, Nyima, Gyaltsen Rinpoche. Thành ra những quý vị nào có khó khăn trong việc cúng dường thì xin quý vị liên lạc với ban tổ chức ạ. Xin cảm ơn, xin tùy hỷ công đức cả nhà.
Thank you. See you next time. Bye bye.
See you next time.
Asia and Vietnam is a good night. Thank you, Rocco, Ina.
Good night, everyone.
Christy. Thank you, everybody.